Into the city, you know, Music City, USA. What's your take on Fashion Week?
I think it's amazing. I'm really excited about it because I said this earlier when I spoke today that anytime people are encouraging industry and arts and entertainment, then we need to get around them and help lift it up because it's one of the most important things in human culture is to celebrate beauty.
Well, I'm gonna have to say that hearing that from you.
But I have to come back next season and produce a show for you and your dad.
Absolutely, you will.
It's Bumba Club unacceptable that we need to do that.
Now, with you saying that, I gotta say it's completely admirable.
It's gonna happen.
You're gonna make this happen.
I'm a woman of my word. I'm wow. I'm a woman of my word.
Make this happen.
I already talked to the people last night. I saw your dad. I mean, in fact, we gotta do 2 Manuel shows.
You got it.
Back to back. The question is who's gonna open and who's gonna close. We're gonna have to take that to the tequila station.
Ooh, Jose Cuervo Cutrone?
No.
Ooh.
I tried to get your dad to have Cutrone last night, and I realized because of your lesson he wouldn't do it. But out of my lesson, they should have had Cutrone. I was like, "Do you want to Cutrone?" He's like, "I'm not gonna drink any of that shit."
I heard that. Enjoy. Have fun with everybody.
I would just wake up every day hoping to catch part of the afternoon. And he said to me one day, "Darling, you cannot do this anymore. You cannot sleep all day and go out all night. You must get a job." And I go, "Okay, I want to be an MTV VJ." And he's like, "You're far too smart for that. You shouldn't be on MTV. You should become a publicist." And I was like, "Whoa, God, what is that?" He goes, "Oh, it's what you do all day. You just talk nonstop and put people together." And I was like, "I could do that." He goes, "Of course, you're a natural." So I went and he set up a job interview with me for Susan Blonde, and she gave me a test. And I failed every question except what was porthenol, which was a type of lace, and my grandmother, being Italian, was really into lace. And she said to me, "Oh my God, you know nothing about PR, but you're the only person to ever get this question right. Would you like to be my assistant?" So that's how I got into PR. You know, I got paid $150 a week. And I worked from 9 a.m. till about 3 a.m., 5 or 6 days a week. I did as a rock publicist, and I was her assistant. My job entailed walking 57 blocks to Chinatown to go to her Chinese doctor to get her fertility creams, calling the Russian tea room to yell at them why Dan Rather was sitting at her table, ordering flowers that I did not know how to pronounce, like chocolate cosmos, hydrangeas, hyacinth, hollyhocks. I mean, I'm a floral expert now. Don't be fooled by my blackness. I can order flowers better than anybody. And instead of being put off by any of that, when I was participating in it, I was like, you know, it's kind of the other things your mother never told you part of my book. Like, my mom was not going to tell me how to call a great florist in New York City and order chocolate cosmos, and she was not going to tell me what restaurants I should be eating at or how much silverware to use or, you know, how to book a Concorde, which used to be a very fast-flying plane for the younger people in the audience that no longer exists but could go to France in under 4 hours from New York. Thank you. It was very expensive. So I worked with people like Michael Jackson and your girl Tammy Wynette. I was on the road with Tammy, the first lady of country music, who did 4 costume changes at the bottom line on a 5-foot stage. In New York, Tammy would play, and she'd be like, "I'll be right back." And the band would go, "Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, the first lady of country music." And people in New York would be like, "Oh my God, she's doing another costume change." And she'd come back out, bigger, better. And then I did like Simply Red and the Fine Young Cannibals. And it was there that I was actually given the task of representing a man by the name of Dan Hartman, who had written a song called Instant Replay, the disco hit. Instant Replay. And anyway, he was the first person to discover this term New Age music, and he became obsessed with it. And he decided to make one of the first New Age records, which was called New Green, Clear Blue, which is absolutely one of the worst pieces of music I've ever heard in my life. Not to mention the fact that he was not that interesting as a person. Nobody in the office wanted to touch this as a PR account. And so they were like, "Let's give it to Susan's assistant. We'll see how good she is now." And so they dropped the record on my desk and they go, "This is your new client." I listened to it and I was like, "Oh God, this is the most painful thing I've ever heard. It's gonna be a disaster." And so I had to start calling the media. So this is when I developed my style of pitching, which was just to tell the truth. So I called Time Magazine. I spoke to a writer by the name of David Thigpen. I said, "Hi, my name's Kelly Cutrone, and I'm the assistant to Susan Blonde, and this is my first PR project. And just so you know, the music is really, really bad, but it's my job to get people to come to this event, and I would really appreciate it if you would come." And this guy was just like one of the biggest music writers, and I thought I was doing fine, you know? And he was like, okay, I'll come. And he's still a really good friend of mine, but a lot of people who actually got that first PR invitation for me came because they wanted to see who this crazy publicist was who was telling the truth. And they felt bad for me, and they knew I was telling the truth, that the record sucked, but they thought it was funny, and they wanted to come and meet me. So that's kind of how my whole PR career started.
So, are we talking about my dad? Yeah.
Well, I love my parents are both Southern Baptist missionaries, so I definitely see the connection between having a conservative father and having a life of transition. So, how do you think in terms of like towards the end of life, like in terms of coming full circle, do you feel that you have made all the same decisions in terms of
You can't live your life to please your parents. You'll be so upset.
Right.
And just because those are the values that they chose to take, just because you were born to them doesn't mean that they're your values. And I think all too often that kids take on these things because they really believe that they should. Because if your father's values is to be like, if he's a preacher or whatever, it doesn't mean that you don't have to not believe in God. But if that's not your thing and you want to be a model and that's seen as sinful, or an independent woman, or live with somebody and then all of a sudden you're going to go to hell, that God, I mean, I don't want to be like destroy religions, but that God doesn't really exist.
right?
There's no such thing as the divine hating people for following their dreams and their intuition, you know what I mean? And if you're going to live your life for your parents, then in my opinion, it's a wasted lifetime. My father was very, very strict, and he really came around. There were times that he was so upset. I did an art opening with 3 couples for High School Love in an art gallery in New York, and we ended up going on Donahue, and the couples were naked, and they kissed, caressed, and fucked and love songs from the 1950s to the 1990s with the American flag on the wall. And I did it when I was married to Imani, the artist, and we said we were white, married, monogamous, and angry. But people claimed to represent us. We're creating a dangerously false reality. And my dad owned I skipped Australia, sorry. My dad owned a really big factory at the time, and it was on the TV, and he didn't even know. And there I was on Donahue with naked people. I was dressed. But my father said, "You are not coming here for the holidays. You are not welcome to our house." How dare you? I was shocked and embarrassed that you would encourage homosexuality and naked people, and he's like, "You are not coming back here." And I was like, "All right, well, have a good Christmas." And it didn't mean that when I was alone that day that I didn't feel bad and outcast, but you gotta be willing to take a few hits. You know what I mean? The day that my dad died, I was scheduled to do I talk about this in my new book, an event with Zac Efron, of all fucking people, and which was like ridiculous. It was a Nylon magazine party, and I was doing a radio interview, and I had a feeling my dad was going to die that morning, and my sister called and she's like, "He's dead," and I was supposed to leave to go do this event, and I was like, and so I called my mother. She's like, no, he's going to be cremated. It's going to take 24 hours. Go and do your event. And so when I was flying, I went to the airport, and I got to the airport, and the woman goes, "You're 8 minutes late, you can't check in." And I started crying. And these 2 huge, chicks that were TSA, Delta people, and they go, "Oh, is that Kel on Earth?" And then the other girl goes, "Yeah, I think that is her. She's crying." And then they go, "She's crying. You should write that book. You gotta cry. You gotta say she's crying." And they go, "Baby, what's wrong?" My father just died, and they're not gonna let me on the plane because I'm 8 minutes late for the hour to check in. And then they go, "Shame on you. What's wrong with you?" And they go, "We're gonna take you and we're gonna get you on your plane. Her daddy just died. You're disgusting." And so they, and I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "She's famous." I was like, "Ha ha ha." And it was the one only time that being well known actually worked in my favor. So I went and I got on the plane, and as the plane was taking off, I was like, this is going to be a way for me. And actually, Ava, do you remember the day before Mommy left that I asked you if Dad died, if you wanted me to tell you in person or on the phone? And what did you say? You said in person, right? And so my dad had died, and she had already gone to school. So I was like, I'm going to get on this plane. So the plane's taking off, and I was thinking, I'm going to actually be able to see if all of my shitties, like all the shit that I talk about, I really believe in, because now it's my dad. It's not my grandmother or a friend. It's actually my father. And so the plane took off, and I was like, my dad's soul is probably ascending, and I'm ascending, but I felt really vulnerable. Like, I felt like I should retreat and be with my tribe, you know, my mom or whatever. And then in the meantime, I had to get her out of school because of Facebook. And I thought, oh my God, people are going to know on the internet. And so we grabbed, and then you got to meet Zac Efron, right?
And then you ruined my day.
I know, but it was better. I ruined my day. You've been telling me, but I told you I would tell you in person, right? Which is better than getting the phone call. So, but when I did that, and my dad had passed, and I was fine, I realized, you know, it's like, you know, that's your parent, you know, and so you do those things. And so when I did that, I realized everything that I believed was true, and that we had all these amazing, great things in common, and sometimes we disagree, you know. But when I was like in that moment and in that place, it was like I had no unanswered questions. So the best thing I think is to live your life so you have no unanswered questions. It's yourself, you know. So you know what you do and how you're copying to it, and so you can live with yourself. You know what I mean? As kids just want to be loved by them, and torture them.
Is that the first time that you've done that?
Since the timeout? You're not going to do that anymore, though. No, speak with her. No secrets. It's rude. There's a Domino's across the street. Do you want some cash? Does no one have any cash?
Maybe.
She won't have any cash.
Maybe
No?
finish.
Here, do you want it? Take it. Thank you. Ava, thank you, Mommy. You're welcome.
And I talk about this in my new book. I needed to know that there were people who were going to be down for me that weren't my blood relatives no matter what, with the exception of like cannibalism and pedophilia, right? And so who were those people going to be, and how were we vesting in each other? Because I was starting to see, and I write about this in Normal Gets You Nowhere, that all of a sudden, like, you're like, oh my God, I love you, you're my best friend. It's like, oh, we're so great, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden you go out and you have a bad night and you do something stupid, right? You become a human being. You have a bad night. And then, you know, people are like, oh, your behavior is unacceptable. I cannot be around this. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so where's the friendship there? I mean, in my opinion, when we see people that are in pain, whether it's psychic, physical, emotional, drug-related, alcohol-related, work-related, heartbreak-related, and we see that they're struggling, we should not be disengaging from them. That's not what we should be doing. We should be treating them as if they were somebody that was having a heart attack in front of us. We should move toward them. Now, sometimes